This is definitely the most thrilling doomsday survival documentary of the year. I am a junior researcher at a marine observation station, currently experiencing a global pandemic of apocalyptic proportions. This is my survival story of the apocalypse, a memoir of fighting to survive in the midst of a zombie outbreak. If this apocalyptic disaster is destined to bury human civilization, this record will be a timeless monument to civilization after the doomsday era. Good luck to all survivors. I have just arrived at the village at the foot of the mountain after experiencing many challenges. Following the village chief's guidance, I arrived at the shelter in the village and saw a dying man with a broken spine. He was not bitten by zombies, but was showing clear signs of turning into one. This brutal reality has revealed to me the most despairing truth of this apocalypse, that each of us is a carrier of the virus, and no matter how we die, it will trigger the process of reanimation. This also means that every survivor in the world right now is a potential zombie. I suddenly felt a wave of weakness throughout my body, and my mind also felt a bit dizzy. The village chief handed me a bundle of rope, indicating that I should help tie up the man in front of me. I knew the village chief was already preparing for him to turn into a zombie. The man suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with bloodshot veins, and his throat let out a hoarse sound. Just when I thought the man had completed his transformation, he suddenly said in extreme pain, "Just end it for me. I know I don't have much time left." The village chief paused for a moment, slowly put down the rope in his hand, and said heavily, "I'm sorry, I can't save you." The man heaved a sigh as he looked at the ceiling, forcing a smile uglier than a cry. Two murky tears rolled down his cheeks. "You did your best. It's just a shame not everyone is lucky enough to live until the end." He looked at me, and in that moment, his eyes were filled with strong feelings of admiration, longing, despair, and anger. This scene reminds me of the electrician in the deep pit. I never thought I would see such complex emotions in the eyes of a stranger. I wonder who he is referring to with this statement. I silently turned away, not wanting to face this moral questioning. After all, the apocalypse is not my responsibility. The man chuckled slightly and said, "Don't let me become that kind of monster. Let me die with dignity." As soon as he finished speaking, the light in his eyes faded away. The village chief stood next to the man in silence for a long time, his eyes tired and heavy, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. The last thing he said was exactly the same as what my son said. The village chief muttered quietly, as if talking to himself or bidding farewell to someone. My heart skipped a beat. Then, following the village chief's orders, we carried the man's heavy body out through the back door of the garage. After dragging him all the way to a remote and uninhabited corner, we abandoned him in a pile of weeds and left immediately. The mayor and I understand that we lack an effective way to directly kill zombies, and I'm afraid we won't be able to fulfill this man's dying wish. Right now, a desperate cry is coming from the pile of weeds behind you, sounding like the brother is about to complete the transformation into a zombie. Next to the pile of weeds, I suddenly heard a whisper coming from the woods. It sounded like a zombie's groan, but also like someone whispering my name. I listened carefully for a moment, but only heard the sound of the wind sighing. The sky is darkened by low-hanging dark clouds. Strong winds are swirling the autumn leaves in the air. It seems like a thunderstorm is approaching. I tried to dismiss the strange sound as my imagination, but a sense of unease is quietly growing inside me. The village chief walked away without looking back, his back appearing old and thin, reminding me of my own father. I hesitated for a moment, then caught up with the village chief before we got back to the shelter. I invited him to come back to the farm with me. Living in the mountains is much safer than in the village, and with the village chief's skills, he could greatly help with the defense of the ranch. Surprisingly, the village chief declined my invitation without hesitation. Later, he brought me back to the shelter and pointed at the fearful survivors there, asking me, "Can you take all these people up the mountain?" I froze for a moment without answering. The mountain has a limited stock of supplies. Who knows how long the wave of zombies will last? And now that the farm is stocked with supplies, every additional person is a heavy burden. Noticing my prolonged silence, the village chief gave a wry smile and patted my shoulder, saying, "No need to feel pressured. In the face of doomsday, I have no right to demand selfless dedication from others. However, as the village chief, it is my duty to protect these villagers. If this were a battlefield, this place would be my field of battle. How can a warrior abandon their own battlefield? If you really want to help me, then stay and help me with a plan. If the plan can be implemented smoothly, the village will not lack supplies in the short term, and you won't have to worry about those people threatening you on the mountain again." Upon hearing this, I instantly perked up. I have never forgotten the purpose of coming down the mountain, to deal with the threat from the other group of survivors. The current conflict between the farm and the village stems from the scarcity of resources for survival. Actually, the whole village has a good amount of food, medicine, and tools in stock. It's just that the sudden attack by the zombie horde scattered the supplies throughout the village instead of being centralized. Right now, there are a lot of supplies scattered all over the village. If we can gather all the resources in the village and use them together, the chances of survival for the survivors will greatly increase. The village chief then informed me of his plan. Currently, there are a large number of zombies scattered inside and around the village. It is apparent that they cannot be quickly eliminated by conventional means. Instead, attracting all the zombies to a designated location with noise is a much better solution. The village chief told me that there is a local fireworks factory located about 5 miles to the west of the village. There is a large amount of custom-made fireworks stored in the warehouse of the fireworks factory, all prepared for large-scale evening events. It is well known that fireworks explosions are very splendid, and you can hear and see them from a distance. Anyone who has had a firework explode in their face knows that the high temperature flame and the extremely high acceleration during launch can cause fatal injuries. The mayor's plan is to use the noise of fireworks to attract zombies from 5 5 miles away. When that happens, not only the village at the foot of the mountain, but also zombie groups from surrounding towns will be drawn in. This will further expand the activity range of the supply collection team. In the ideal scenario, we could even eliminate the raging zombie horde by setting fire to a fireworks factory. It would definitely be a spectacular fireworks show. The plan is set, and theoretically very feasible. I immediately agreed to the request of the village chief. After all, compared to directly fighting the other group of survivors, the village chief's plan is obviously a proposal that benefits all parties. Just then, there came a noisy footsteps outside the shelter, with someone gently knocking on the garage roller door. The survivors immediately backed away in fear, and the children tightly covered their mouths to prevent themselves from crying out, because they knew that every child who cried out in these days did not survive. I'm sure zombies wouldn't be this polite. The person knocking on the door must be another group of survivors. The village chief and I exchanged a glance and nodded at each other. We carefully went out through the side door and saw 3 or 4 young people in leather jackets scattered around. They had somehow acquired a large number of compound bows and were now aiming them at the garage door. The young leader saw me and said in a cold tone, "Where are your supplies? Hand them over now. We don't want to make this situation ugly. You've seen our bows and arrows. At this close range, he can pierce your bones." I glanced at the village chief, took 2 steps forward, with one hand already gripping my phone in my pocket, and my fingers searching for the play button. I felt a cold sweat breaking out on my back. If I make noise here, all the survivors of the village will not be able to escape the onslaught of the zombie tide. This is the real death of the same. I collected my spirit and said with a strong sense of composure, "The supplies are in the room. I can give them to you, but how can I make sure that you will not harass our family again? I will not hand over the supplies unless you give me guarantees." I didn't expect that as soon as I finished speaking, the young people started laughing coldly one after another. How could this be harassment? In times of danger, shouldn't we help each other? Good neighbor, thank you for helping us this time. We will remember it. Next time we need help, we will come to you. I instantly sensed the threat in their words. It sounds like they plan to turn the farm into a long-term restaurant. I quickly glanced at the surrounding terrain, figuring out how to eliminate the enemies in front of me without endangering the village chief's shelter using the zombie horde. This action immediately set off their alarm, and one of the most impatient young men quickly drew his bowstring and scolded, "Don't get any ideas. Hand over the goods to us right away." I held a long knife in my hand and gripped my phone tightly in my pocket, ready to fight to the death. Just as things were about to spiral out of control, the village chief stepped forward and said, "Have you all had enough of this nonsense? Do you really think you're robbing from the rich to give to the poor? Our resources are limited. If we keep stealing from each other, they will run out eventually. What's your plan after that? Point your bows at your own people? Do you think there aren't enough zombies around already? Today, you few rascals, if you have any potential, stop fighting in this trivial manner. Dare to join me in doing something significant?"